Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it's the weekend and it is a movie review time. So yes, as the title would say, I swear this is one of the greatest movies released of this year, and that kind of gives you the kind of pretense of where this will go. So this is the movie I Swear, obviously 2025, 2 hours long, from director and writer Kirk Jones, who's also previously done Nanny McPhee, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and My Big Fat Greek Wedding too. So kind of comedy-ish, maybe touchy-feely, caring movies. This essentially has a not major cast. So we have Robert Akamara, if I pronounce him right, playing John Davison, the lead character. Peter McCullum playing Tommy Trotter. Maxine Perk playing Dottie Akabak. Shirley Henderson, Moni Merton, if you know, playing Heather Davison, and then Scott Ellis Watson, playing the young John Davison. Anybody who doesn't know or hasn't seen this, basically, it is about a young lad in the 90s, in the 80s, who unfortunately develops Tourette's. Obviously, Tourette's wasn't known at that time. This story chronicles his life, going from a young kid to basically growing up and the impact it had from his family. A friendship that he makes with a friend's mother. And essentially the story he then goes on to learn about Tourette's, and then ends up being like an advocate for Tourette's, as going on to get in an MBE from the Queen in 2019. As you can tell, I really enjoyed this movie. There are a lot of aspects to it, but I don't want to get too much into it. So we'll put the spoiler warning up so you don't see, and then we will get going. So as I said, I didn't want to spoil it. If you've come this far, thank you for staying on, and we should get into it. So as I said, the movie starts. We have a very young John Davison character. He lives with his mum and his dad. You can tell he has sisters. He is a young lad. He's just going into upper school. He's good at football and stuff like that. And there kind of is this kind of turning point in his life where obviously, you go to big school. There's a scout coming to see him. As he starts to go to school, you start to notice he starts to get tics and facial twitches and stuff like this. And then he starts to involuntarily do stuff or say stuff as you go along. This causes him to get reprimanded by the headmaster, who basically whips him across his hands. This is just before, obviously, he goes to his football match where the scout's coming out to him. Obviously, he doesn't perform very good because he's got really bad hands now, and obviously then he's twitching and stuff like this, and it doesn't. This causes his dad to be very upset with him. His mum calls upset. He ends up spitting at them, and involuntarily that he doesn't know, he then gets told to sit in a fire, and basically his dad leaves, and his mum basically doesn't seem to hold him in the highest regards. We then scroll 13 years later, and you have an adult version of John, obviously walking around the streets with his mum, shouting stuff and shopping. And during going into the shop, he meets his friends, who you kind of saw when you earlier in the video. He went to Australia, he comes back. Unfortunately, his mum's ill with cancer, and they go to have a meet up. As they kind of meet up later in that day, you learn that obviously he explains to his mate, "I've got Tourette's. This is what it is." Obviously, 13 years have passed from the 80s, so this is 96, 97. And he explains everything that he has kind of gone through, or maybe it's earlier 90s. As he finishes talking with his mate, he's like, "Do you want to come in for dinner?" and stuff like this. He goes, "No, I've got to get home because I've got to have the drugs and stuff like this." And then Dottie, the mum, sticks her head out and goes, "Come on in." So he comes in. As she opens the door, he's like, "Oh, you're going to die of cancer." And he's like, "I'm really sorry." And you can see she's a little bit taken back, but understands something more is going on. He goes in. She goes, "I'm setting the table," and stuff like, "Come down when you're ready." He goes into the toilet, and then basically he's constantly in there up to the point he starts ticking really badly, smashes the mirror, and then decides to try and leave, sits outside the house, and he's having a cigarette. And this is where it is a very turning moment in the movie, where Dottie comes out. You learn that she is kind of a social worker, sits with him and talks to him and says, like, "How are you and how are things and stuff?" I can tell what's going on. And then you kind of learn that he isn't all right. He is suffering with something that not really people know about. And unfortunately, because of it, he is kind of almost been victimized in a lot of his life. And this forms the relationship between these two characters. Dottie then decides to take him on, and they have a spare room in the house. He comes to live with him. It's being with his mum isn't the greatest situation for him to be, which he then goes and has a confrontation with his mum about. And then he kind of he also learns that he's on some drugs and it's better for him not to take the drugs. Once he's off these drugs with the young lad that he's friends with, Dottie's son, they go out on a night out, and unfortunately it involves him getting beat up a little bit, and then he gets arrested. In which comes out, it's like people don't understand that he's got Tourette's because people don't understand Tourette's back in the day. Then it is kind of a set events of him trying to sort his life out as the girl goes by him at one point. The shop, he tells her that fuck off, pardon my French, obviously, and sticks the finger up at him. She gets very offended. A little bit time goes by, not a lot, and then you find out that basically he goes to apply for a job, which is where we meet Tommy Trotter. And if you've seen the trailer, you'll see of him how he starts doing the tricks, and Tommy basically accepts him for himself. I won't go into too much detail because I don't want to ruin. There are some other stuff in there. When he comes home, find out that Dottie actually, the lump that they thought was cancer wasn't cancer, it just presents as cancer. So she's all right. As a celebration, as he's got the job as well, gives him some money to go to the chip shop. He goes to the chip shop. As he's going there, you see the girl that he told to F off, so to speak, or buy. Unfortunately, she then instigates two gentlemen to meet him under a bridge and beat the hell out of him, basically causing him to be in hospital. Obviously, not a great situation to be in, worried about his job, worried about his family and everything. He then recovers, takes over the groundkeeper's job and does really, really well. And Tommy's quite an impact on him. And as he's been doing the job a little while, Tommy's also having to go to hospital appointments. You don't know why. And then one day when he goes to see him with the dog, unfortunately, he is found dead. Tommy then takes over Tommy's job temporarily while they're looking for someone. And then as time goes on, he gets given a job because he's that good, which comes with a house and stuff like this. And then he starts to become more aware of Tourette's by reading stuff with Dottie and that, and then help people come and see him and help him out. And he does this like weekend for people to learn Tourette's, which then takes him on to be an MBE. And then there is another step, and I'm not going to say what that is because I don't want to spoil all of the movie if you've got this far. What did I think of this movie? I rate this 8.6 out of 10. Watching a trailer and watching a film and expecting it to be good, and that movie to over deliver, is exactly what this movie does. Because of how good this movie is and how good a few movies have been, I will be doing a follow-up movie which will involve this, but I don't want to go into too much. So this is loosely based on a documentary. There are documentaries out, they were released back in the day. It's to invoke that their understanding, so like people who swear with Tourette's is only like 10%. There are different names for different types of people, the music, the humour, how it's delivered. And I would do it, and obviously I'm going to have to swear a little bit. So in the trailer, you'll see he says spunk for tea. Now, a film that is taken from a documentary back away, that has been developed into a film, that then you have this trailer, and at the end of the trailer, that's kind of, you see him in court, because obviously due to one of the instigation, he has to go to court, which I don't want to go too much in, but he references this. And it is such a funny moment, but it's done so tastefully within the film that you will remember it being from the trailer. Now, if you take the same sort of premise and you take The Rock's Smashing Machine, that's from a documentary in a film, and he says like no fighting, that just doesn't land right, which goes to show you that it doesn't matter like the people who are in it or the cast or even the story. Essentially, it all comes down to every element working together, the right actors, the right directors, the right editing, the right story and everything. And this is what this film does almost immaculately. There are times, John, who is the person behind this, his real life, he's still alive, he was an executive producer on this, so they got to ask him, and he even says, like, there are times where you laugh, he says something and it's funny, and even John, the real life person, even says that, that's how they are. People with Tourette's laugh quite a lot because you say these funny things, because it's like there is no wall up, there is no something to tell you not to say it, you just say it because that's how Tourette's works. and something. And when it starts up with the MBE side of things, that did put me off a little bit because I was like, I didn't want it to kind of know that it leads there, but there's more to it. So that did surprise me. So that even elevated me there. There are a few little bits that that I've done very well and done very tastefully about this movie. As I say, I to be honest, this will only, I think, go up in my rankings when they do a physical release of this. I don't think it will ever get a steelbook or something, but if it gets like a really nice collector's edition, I will definitely go. For, if I understand the main guy, so John and Tommy, the two main actors, they're both from Game of Thrones, The Rings of Power. So one is Lord Elrond, a younger version, and one is the King. I don't think they have much interaction, but they work so well. They play the roles. It's done so well. Educational. You come out so heartfelt that you want to learn more about this thing and what goes on in these things. And a condition that has afflicted quite a few people, but you don't really get to see it. Because I mean, in my walk of life, I've lived in multiple places within the UK. I'm in my 40s. I've been to all these type of shows and events and stuff with like comics and stuff like this. And, I traveled around the world with my job and stuff like this for certain bits. And and I don't think I've ever met a person with Tourette's. As far as I know, I could personally see, I've met people that have maybe had conditions and maybe one of them could have been Tourette's. I just didn't realize it because of all the classifications. But it just is such a heartwarming movie that you have to feel for the fact that this guy has gone through so much at a time when not a lot was known, and then went on to be an advocate for it. The fact to get an MBE from the Queen when obviously she was alive. The only, I say, not a bad point. The only thing this puts me with is now where I'm going to put this in my top 10. I was expecting this to be good, but not as, as I say, it's excelled. Would definitely, if you are even interested in the movie, please go to the cinema to see this movie. Now, this isn't a big blockbuster movie. It hasn't got a lot of one. So anybody that goes and spends money on a ticket is some money towards this film, and this money deserves to do well. That's just my thought and opinions. Have you seen the movie I Swear? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below so we can carry on this conversation. Otherwise, I'll definitely see you in the next one.